Not take advantage of a widow or an orphan. Exodus 22:22. Do not deny justice to your poor people in their lawsuits. Exodus 23:6. During the seventh year, let the land lie down, unplowed and unused. The poor among your people may get food from it, and the wild animals may eat what they leave. Do the same with your vineyard and your olive grove. Exodus 23:11. Do not go over your vineyard a second time or pick up the grapes that have fallen. Leave them for the poor and the alien. I am the Lord your God. Leviticus 19:10. Do not pervert justice. Do not show partiality to poor or favoritism to the great, but judge your neighbor fairly. Leviticus 19:15. When you reap the harvest of your land, do not reap the very edges of your field or gather the gleanings of your harvest. Leave them for the poor and the alien. I am the Lord your God. Leviticus 23:22. If one of your countrymen becomes poor and sells some of his property, his nearest relative is to come and redeem what his countryman has sold. If one of your countrymen becomes poor and is unable to support himself among you, help him as you would an alien or a temporary resident, so he can continue to live among you. If one of your countrymen becomes poor among you and sells himself to you, do not make him work as a slave. Leviticus 25:25, 35, 39. If an alien or a temporary resident among you becomes rich, and one of your countrymen becomes poor and sells themselves to an alien living among you, or to a member of the alien's clan, he retains the right of redemption. Leviticus 25:47-48. He defends the cause of the fatherless and the widow and loves the alien, giving him food and clothing. Deuteronomy 10:18. At the end of every 3 years, bring all your tithes that year produced and store it in your towns, so that the Levites who have no allotment or inheritance of their own, and the aliens, the fatherless, and the widows who live in your towns may come and eat and be satisfied. Deuteronomy 14:28-29. However, there should be no poor among you, for in the land of the Lord your God is giving you to possess as your inheritance, he will richly bless you. Deuteronomy 15:4. If there is a poor man among your brothers in any of the towns of the land that the Lord your God is giving you, do not be hard-hearted or tight-fisted toward your poor brother. Deuteronomy 15:7. Be careful not to harbor this wicked thought. The seventh year, the year for canceling debts, is near, so that you do not show ill will toward your needy brother and give him nothing. He may then appeal to the Lord against you, and you will be found guilty of sin. Deuteronomy 15:9. There will always be poor people in the land, therefore I command you to be open-handed toward your brothers and toward the poor and needy in your land. Do not take advantage of a hired man who is poor and needy, whether he is a brother Israelite or an alien in one of your towns. Deuteronomy 24:14. Do not deprive the alien or the fatherless of justice, or take the cloak of the widow as a pledge. Deuteronomy 24:17. When you are harvesting in your field and you overlook a sheep, do not go back to get it. Leave it for the alien, the fatherless, and the widow, so that the Lord your God may bless you in all the work of your hands. When you beat the olives from your trees, do not go over the branches a second time. Leave what remains for the alien, the fatherless, and the widow. When you harvest the grapes in your vineyard, do not go over the vines again. Leave what remains for the alien, the fatherless, and the widow. Deuteronomy 24:19-21. Cursed is a man who withholds justice from the alien, the fatherless, or the widow. Then all the people shall say, Amen. Deuteronomy 27:19. He raises the poor from the dust and lifts the needy from the ash heap. He seats them with princes and has them inherit a throne of honor. 1 Samuel 2:8. As a time when the Jews got relief from their enemies, and as the month when their sorrow was turned into joy and their mourning into a day of celebration, he wrote them to observe the days as the days of feasting and joy, and giving presents of food to one another and gifts to the poor. Esther 9:22. When daylight is gone, the murderer rises up and kills the poor and needy. In the night he steals forth like a thief. Job 24:14. Because I rescued the poor who cried for help, and the fatherless who had none to assist him. Job 29:12. Have I not wept for those in trouble? Has not my soul grieved for the poor? Job 30:25. If I have denied the desires of the poor, or let the eyes of the widow grow weary. Job 31:16. The Lord is a refuge for their oppressed, a stronghold in times of trouble. But the needy will not always be forgotten, nor hope of the afflicted ever perish. Psalms 9:18. Because of the oppression of the weak and the groaning of the needy, I will now arise, says the Lord. I will protect them from those who malign them. Psalms 12:5. You evildoers frustrate the plans of the poor, but the Lord is their refuge. Psalms 14:6. This poor man called, and the Lord heard him. He saved him out of all his troubles. Psalms 34:6. My whole being will exclaim, who is like you, O Lord? You rescue the poor from those too strong for them, the poor and needy from those who rob them. Psalms 35:10. The wicked draw the sword and bend the bow to bring down the poor and needy, to slay those whose ways are upright. Psalms 37:14. Yet I am poor and needy. May the Lord think of me. You are my help and my deliverer. O my God, do not delay. Psalms 40:17. A father to the fatherless, a defender of widows, is God in his holy dwelling. Psalm 68:5. Your people settled in it, and from your bounty, O God, you provided for the poor. Psalm 68:10. The poor will see and be glad. You who seek God, may your hearts live. The Lord hears the needy and does not despise his captive people. Psalm 69:32-33. Yet I am poor and needy. Come quickly to me, O God. You are my help and my deliverer. O Lord, do not delay. Psalm 75. He will defend the afflicted among the people and save the children of the needy. He will crush the oppressor. Psalm 72:4. For he will deliver the needy who cry out, the afflicted who have no one to help. He will take pity on the weak and the needy and save the needy from death. Psalm 72:12-13. Do not let the oppressed retreat in disgrace. May the poor and needy praise your name. Psalm 74:21. Defend the cause of the weak and the fatherless. Maintain the rights of the poor and oppressed. Rescue the weak and needy. Deliver them from the hand of the wicked. Psalms 82:3-4. But he lifted the needy out of their affliction and increased their families like flocks. Psalms 107:41. For he stands at the right hand of the needy one to save his life from those who condemn him. Psalms 109:31. He has scattered abroad his gifts to the poor. His righteousness endures forever. His horn will be lifted high in honor. Psalms 112:9. He raises the poor from dust and lifts the needy from the ash heap. Psalms 113:7. I will bless her with abundant provisions. Her poor will I satisfy with food. Psalms 132:15. I know that the Lord secures justice for the poor and upholds the cause of the needy. Psalms 140:12. He upholds the cause of the oppressed and gives food to the hungry. The Lord sets prisoners free. Psalms 146:7. The Lord watches over the alien and sustains the fatherless and the widow, but he frustrates the ways of the wicked. Psalms 146:9. I know that the Lord secures justice for the poor and upholds the cause of the needy. Proverbs 13:23. He who despises his neighbor sins, but blessed is he who is kind to the needy. Proverbs 14:21. He who oppresses the poor shows contempt for their maker, but whosoever is kind to the needy honors God. Proverbs 14:31. The Lord tears down the proud man's house, but he keeps the widow's boundaries intact. Proverbs 15:25. Better to be lowly in spirit and among the oppressed than to share plunder with the proud. Proverbs 16:19. He who mocks the poor shows contempt for their maker. Whoever gloats over disaster will not go unpunished. Proverbs 17:5. He who mocks the poor shows contempt for their maker. Whoever gloats over disaster will not go unpunished. Proverbs 17:5. I had to say that one twice. He who is kind to the poor lends to the Lord, and he will reward him for what he has done. Proverbs 19:17. If a man shuts his ears to the cry of the poor, he too will cry out and not be answered. Proverbs 21:13. A generous man will himself be blessed, for he shares his food with the poor. Proverbs 22:9. He who oppresses the poor to increase his wealth, and he who gives gifts to the rich will come to poverty. Proverbs 22:16. Do not exploit the poor because they are poor, and do not crush the needy in court. Proverbs 22:22. A ruler who oppresses the poor is like a driving rain that leaves no crops. Proverbs 28:3. He who gives to the poor will lack nothing, but he who closes his eyes to them receives many curses. The righteous care about justice for the poor, but the wicked have no such concern. Proverbs 29:7. Those whose teeth swords and whose jaws are set with knives to devour the poor from the earth, the needy from among mankind. Proverbs 30:14. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and needy. Proverbs 31:9. She opens her arms to the poor and extends her hands to the needy. Proverbs 31:20. If you see the poor oppressed in a district, and justice and rights denied, do not be surprised at such things, for one official is eyed by a higher one, and over them both are others higher still. Ecclesiastes 5:8. Learn to do right, seek justice, encounter the oppressed, defend the cause of the fatherless, plead the case of the widow. Isaiah 1:17. The Lord enters into judgment against the elders and leaders of his people. It is you who have ruined my vineyard. The plunder from the poor is in your house. What do you mean by crushing my people and grinding the faces of the poor, declares the Lord Almighty. Isaiah 3:14-15. To deprive the poor of their rights and withhold justice from the oppressed of my people, making widows their prey and robbing the fatherless. Isaiah 10:2. With righteousness he will judge the needy. With justice he will give decisions for the poor of the earth. He will strike the earth with the rod of his mouth. With the breath of his lips he will slay the wicked. Isaiah 11:4. The poorest of the poor will find pasture, and the needy will lie down in safety. But your ruin I will destroy by famine. It will slay your survivors. Isaiah 14:30. You have been a refuge for the poor, a refuge for the needy in his distress, a shelter from the storm and a shade from the heat. For the breath of the ruthless is like a storm driving against a wall. Isaiah 25:4. Once more the humble will rejoice in the Lord. The needy will rejoice in the Holy One of Israel. Isaiah 29:19. The scoundrel's methods are wicked. He makes up evil schemes to destroy the poor with lies, even when the plea of the needy is just. Isaiah 32:7. The poor and the needy search for water, but there is none. Their tongues are parched with thirst. But I, the Lord, will answer them. I, the God of Israel, will not forsake them. Isaiah 41:17. Is not this the kind of fasting I have chosen, to loose the chains of injustice and unite the cords of the yoke, to set the oppressed free and break every yoke? Is it not share your food with the hungry and to provide the poor wanderer with shelter? When you see the naked, to clothe him, and not to turn away from your own flesh and blood. Isaiah 58:6-7. If you spend yourselves in behalf of the hungry and satisfy the needs of the oppressed, then your light will rise in the darkness, and your night will become like the noonday. Isaiah 58:10. The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me, because the Lord has anointed me to preach good news to the poor. He has sent me
to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom from the captives and release from the darkness for the prisoners. Isaiah 61:1.